That's all good. Cool. Hey guys, welcome to Aussie Craft Distillers Shooting the Shit. And we got a big one tonight. My co-hosts are both offline due to technical issues. Blame the Sydney wet weather, I would think. But anyway, they'll come back online soon. Anyway, tonight we've got a big one. So we've got John Ibrahim from Callington Mill, and we've got Bill Lark, who's looking a little bit worse for wear since the Australian Whiskey Awards. Bill, mate, what happened? You just gone to pot in a week.
I've been celebrating, Craig, celebrating. And I said all that without moving my mouth.
I know. I'm impressed.
You can't see it, Bill.
That's more like it.
Yeah, you got you got to get in there. Get in there. Wide on the screen. I can see down the bottom.
So, for those who don't know, we're professionals. You can tell by how we roll. So, yeah, Aussie Craft Distillers Shooting the Shit. So we've got Russ. Russ, introduce yourself, mate, just quickly. Where you from? What you do?
Yeah, look, Russ Watson from Brewery Distillery over near Geelong.
Yeah, nice. And where's your offsider, mate? Where's your business partner, mate? He's there, or has he wandered off?
He's just ducked back to Shippies to grab a bottle of whiskey we had in the suitcase. We saw you having one. We thought we've got to have one as well.
Oh, absolutely.
And Bill doesn't have any in his house.
I'm waiting for Russ.
We brought a bottle of whiskey down. We bought a few, and we've got one left there. We're heading home tomorrow, so we're going to crack it and have it now.
We've also got Robbie Gilly with us from Sherwood Distillery.
Hey,
How you doing, pal?
Hey, how are you, bud?
Very good, mate. Hi, guys.
Oh, look at that!
Wow, man! Wow, this is cool.
Oh,
This is
There you go. Look at that.
Oh, beautiful.
That.
Thanks, pal. Look at that.
So
What's that?
I'm going to start it off. That is a cracking gin.
Where's that from?
Some shitty little distillery in Tassie. I don't know what they're called.
Made by the Glaswegian guys.
Is that is a Derwood Distillery gin. The Last
Very
Sanctuary
nice.
organic Tassie gin. And my purchase goes towards supporting the handfish conservation
That's a
project,
good deed for the month, flip.
which is sorry. There you
That's a
go.
good deed
So that's
for the month.
yeah, absolutely. I like drinking for a good deed. But yeah, that is I've been trying to ration myself because I only got it I think I got it last week and I love it. It's an absolute cracker.
Yeah, nice, cool. Well, let's go around the room first, eh? So, what we always say to people on Aussie Craft Distillers Shooting the Shit who don't know it, this is our attempt to give you an insight into the relationships with distillers and cooperers and other people in the industry. So it is shooting the shit. It's as Australian as it can be. And the idea behind it is everyone's pouring something Australian and just enjoying the conversation. And we encourage people to hit us with questions. And we have a lot of fun on the way. And we cover a few topics. So we have no idea where this is going to go. So hold on to your lily white butts and we will see where this thing's going to go. Okay.
And I think this is actually the largest number of guests we've had at any given time. So I'm sure chaos is going to ensue.
Chaos will reign supreme. So let's rip into it. So first of all, John, what are you drinking, mate? What do you got in your glass?
Water. You can do better
I'm
than
getting
that.
a whiskey. I was trying
Australian water.
I was
Australian.
trying to log on, but now that I'm on, I'll get a whiskey.
Yeah, go and get a whiskey, mate. All right, so we'll move on. So the boys, what are the boys drinking?
1 minute.
Well,
What do you got
Craig's
there?
just turned up and he's bought one of Russ's whiskies and his whiskey. Tell us about this one, Craig.
Right, so this is one of our Pinot Noir
barrels, 100-litre Pinot Noir barrels.
Come around here, champ.
Nice.
I don't know if you can see me there.
Come in here. Come in here.
Yeah, if you sat down, you'll see it a bit. Yeah, yeah.
All right, there we are.
Yeah,
Hello,
see, this
hello
is a big
everyone.
fella.
Tell us about this whiskey, Crafty.
So this one's called Redback because when we were filling the barrel of this one, we found about 23 redback spiders a day. Common occurrence down on the Bellarine. These are two 100-litre ex-Pinot Noir barrels from Scotchman's Hill winery just up the road from us.
Right.
We had Youngie recooper them.
Yep.
And then they spent. What we got here? They spent. Yeah, and so both those 100-litre barrels spent 19 months in the Pinot, and then we took them out and blended them together and put them in a bourbon cask, and spent a year in bourbon. And I brought it down to Tassie here, just to try and make some decisions where we go from. Do we leave it in the bourbon for a bit longer? I kind of like it as it is, but it could go a bit longer. So,
And what is the consensus?
It's not too shit house.
Yeah, not too shit house. So it's a little shit house. Just not.
No, it's not too shit house. That's bloody good.
That's very cool, guys. Very cool. I'll tell you what I've got. So I'm drinking two great Australian whiskies. So this one, if you can see it.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's out of Griffith. That's Mark Burns, Michelle Burns, still builders extraordinaire, distillers, mates, mentors, and they make a fucking good whiskey. So this one is their tawny cask, 49%. And I tell you, once I opened it, it just got better and better and better. With a bit of oxygen, it just got better. So I'm drinking that, and then I'm going to move on to a Victorian. Chief's Run, the Tannis. So I picked this up this week, and I'm looking forward to tasting this. Well, I've already started, and there's a giveaway. So that's what I'm on. So, John, what are you on, mate?
Can you see it? I
think I can. Yeah. Redlands. Yeah, nice.
Redlands.
I'm trying to get it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow.
Cask strength.
That's old.
Pinot cask.
Wow.
Ooh, nice.
Wow.
That's a blast from the past.
Yeah, wow.
That is
Very
really
nice.
Yeah.
Right, so we're all drinking some quality.
So we saw. So I'm on the gin to start with.
Yeah, what are you on after that for whiskey?
After that, I'm going to move on to a Corowa.
Oh, beautiful.
Royalty.
Very nice.
Victorian.
So
awesome.
This is the Barrel House XP, just their little bottle, which is quite cute.
Yep.
Comes in that awesome little sock.
Hang on. Hold it up. That looks like a no. The little bag.
The little.
You sure it's not Dean's Mankini? Looks a little bit like a Mankini to me.
Yeah, well, look at it's got a bit of. I'm sure it's been used. I probably shouldn't have put my name on the order, but yeah.
Yeah, I think you're getting payback.
All
right, let's rip into this now, guys. So, John, a lot of people are watching what you've done, and it is a game changer in Tasmania. I think it's fair to say. But would love to hear it from your words. Just how did the journey start for you? I mean, you started as a whiskey lover. Where did it go from there?
It's like all lovers. I think I was naive with what I was in love with. I was in love with just whiskey.
Right.
At the time, it was blended whiskey, and I didn't really understand that. But it was Johnny Walker Black, Johnny Walker Blue, St. George, Johnny Walker St. George. I think it was mainly Shivers, that sort of stuff. That was in 2015, and then I met Bill Lark, started to understand what a single malt was, and basically I started the Tasmanian journey back then. So this is the 7th year in. It feels like I sort of joined yesterday, but 7 years is a long time. So in that time, I've spent a lot of time with almost everyone in Tasmania, but notably Bill Lark and the Redlands, which is the old Kempton team. And
Yep.
I had a few years with Sheen. And along the way, we just travelled the world and travelled Australia and just surfed the internet and learned all things, or still learning all things whiskey. And so, my ultimate dream obviously was Callington Mill Distillery, and we finished it now, so we're ready to open.
Wow. So when is the opening?
Like everything, we've got our cooling tower for our condensing. It's a little bit too noisy, so unfortunately, we have to rip that out and put a new cooling tower in there with some shock absorbers and build a 5-meter wall, soundproof wall, to mitigate the noise going to the neighbour. So till we do that, we're not allowed to open. So we envisage that will happen well and truly by the end of this month, I hope. But as soon as we've done that rectification, then we'll be ready to open.
It's just looking at the website at the moment. Looks like a beautiful facility.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of very sexy rows of the stills at the back, and then you've got, what are they, the fermenters and whatever on the side. Very, very cool.
Yeah. Look, it was a challenge. I was going to buy a distillery from overseas with either Frilly or Forsyth at the time. Forsyth, I think, is still upset with Bill. They haven't managed to get one sale in Tassie. Do you remember that, Bill?
Yeah, I do. I do, John.
Yeah, well, I came close to buying a Frilly distillery, but to cut a long story short, Bill introduced me to George Burgess at the time and to Mark Kolchevics, and he's the owner of Colmark. And then from there, we started talking about engineering and building a turnkey whiskey distillery, which had to be 100% Tasmanian made. So he took that upon his own shoulders, and that was we started that in, I think, around 16, 17. So the result is the distillery you see that we have at Callington Mill. So a huge achievement, So the distillery itself it's a pretty distillery, but it's a functional distillery. And the aim of that distillery was to obviously integrate and automate and simplify the whiskey making process, to take away the labor involved, and to ensure that the distillers had more say into the whiskey making process every step of the way. For example, in the gristing, our miller, we can actually keep modifying the gristing process to achieve the ratios that we want, and we actually weigh that. So when we take a sample, we will weigh the grist, we will weigh the husks, we will weigh the flour, and believe it or not, we found the ratios of 10%, 70%, and 30%. That's what optimizes the sugar extraction in the mash tun. So by controlling all those variables, we have found we've actually to date have done 45 mashings. So we've been able to check the sugar extraction and the alcohol extraction and the yield. So it just gives us, because we've got a sophisticated, I guess, or an integrated distillery, we've got more time now to just focus and move the levers as we want, to try to experiment and to get the desired outcome that we want. And once we have that desired outcome, we can then lock in those parameters and set those parameters, and that becomes our methodology moving forward.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just going to put up a quick little picture here as well that I've just nicked from the website.
Yeah.
That's a thing of beauty.
Yeah, that's not finished, by the way.
Oh, right. Okay.
We don't have the spirit safe in the middle of the two stills there where the condensers meet.
Right.
Yeah.
Spirit safe.
Can I just
Just
can
for
I
a
just
second.
butt in
I
there?
stole that idea from Scotland, obviously.
Yeah, I just got him for a second. So we got the Todd, he's on the team. The Todd, he's my right hand man. He's joined us. Todd, you there, mate?
I think I am at long last.
You are at last. So what are you drinking? Because you're a bit stressed out there. I'm sure you're drinking
Couldn't
something
find
pretty
anything strong. No, I'm just going with country to coast.
nice, Fluorio and
Florida
Becco. Great collaboration. Yeah, awesome, excellent. All right, well, let's go back to John. John, I got a question. So when Luke put that picture up, straight away I thought that could be in Scotland. It's got that grandeur about it. So was that what your idea was from the start? You wanted to basically take that grandeur, that layout, and have it in Tasmania, or did it evolve over time?
No. Look, it's a combination of things. Obviously, that grandeur is there. Well, it's a result of necessity. Necessity is the mother of all invention. I mean, at the end of the day, all whiskey, is really the same process. So you need to mill it, you need to mash it, you need to ferment it, you need to distill it. So I took. Obviously, it looks like any other distillery, but I wanted to incorporate it and make it functional, but also use the optimum equipment or technology available. So one of the briefs, there were two other briefs with the distillery. I wanted it to be the safest distillery possible, right? And I wanted it to be the most energy efficient. So wherever we've got liquid that we want to discard that's hot, we will hold that liquid, like the pot ale. We'll put it in a holding tank, and then when we want to cool it the next day, we then use that to charge to heat exchange with charging the wash still. So basically, we wanted to be functional. We wanted it to be intelligent, which the result of that will be just like other good distilleries in the world. But I also wanted it to be my brief to Mark was, if you think I need a 6-cylinder car, give me a V8, right? So I didn't. I wanted to be with Sheen. When we built Sheen for the last 4 years, we have been spending money every single week. Every single week there was something that broke down, something that went amiss, and it was $1,000 some weeks, it was $6,000 some weeks. So I just did not want that headache. And by the way, before I built Callington Mill Distillery, Colmark built a distillery for Callington Mill under Callington Mill license in Hobart at Glenorchy. And that's also an integrated distillery. We built that 3.5 years ago now. Now, touch wood, we operate that 6 days a week, 2 shifts a day, 6 days a week. We've been operating that for 3.5 years, and we've never spent $1 on maintenance, not $1. And Colmark also stand by their work. We've got a 25-year warranty as well. So we wanted, if we thought we wanted 3 millimeters, we got 5 millimeters thickness. So we went for quality every step of the way, because I think in the long run, it's cheaper in the long run, and you get, hopefully you should get the result that you're looking for. And forgive me for being a little bit of a businessman, but you also get, we've proven it, we get a better yield per ton of barley as well, using exactly the same yeast regime and exactly the same barley as well.
So it sounds like you've come a long way. And I want to ask Bill a question. So Bill, this guy called John rings you up and goes, I don't know a lot about whiskey, but I'd like to know more. So tell me the relationship between you and John, how it started and how it's evolved over the years.
Yeah, well, it wasn't a matter of John getting in touch with us. It was a matter of us getting in touch with John.
Okay.
When we were looking for a new home for Old Kempton Distillery, we were looking at a particular property. While we were humming and hawing, John came and bought it. And
Right.
John got in touch with the agent and said, was there anybody interested in the property that had a use for it? And so she hooked John up with us, and we said, well, look, yeah, we had a use for it. We wanted to build a distillery there. And John invited us to his house in Sydney. We flew up to Sydney, and we just started talking. I think, John, we drank a bottle of Johnny Walker Black, and then we opened one of your King George V or whatever it was, and just about drank that.
I gave you blue first, Bill. Blue. Johnny Walker
right. And
blue. Then I gave you the St. George one.
So by the time we finished that, we worked out there was sort of a marriage in heaven to be made here, and we managed to work out to establish our distillery at Kempton, and John asked if he could be part of the distillery, and we just joined forces. And for poor old John, that was the thing that changed his life, ruined his life, some people say, but he just got hooked on whiskey. And I have to tell you, John is probably the one person in the whole of Australian whiskey industry that has spent more time and effort to learn about making whiskey than anybody I know. John has been an absolute dynamo in this area, wanting to understand how to make whiskey. We've been to Scotland together. We've been to Ireland together. We've been all over the place. And John has spent enormous time learning about our industry and working in our industry to the point of being able to establish Callington Mill. John's been, he's probably, he's a real, what's the right word? He's a real champion of the Australian whiskey industry, and somebody that we can all be grateful for that he's entered the industry. And he's doing wonderful things. And I don't know we're all passionate, Craig. You're passionate, I'm passionate. But I got to tell you, in 7 years, John's become one of the most passionate people about wanting to make a top Australian whiskey.
Oh, that's really cool. That's John. So you've gone from drinking whiskey to where you wanted to understand more. I'm interested in your approach to learning. From what Bill said, you've really just embraced it and done a lot of learning. Now that takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
So how did you go about it? Because I know you're a busy man. You've got other things going on in your life. So how did you approach the learning side? Because as you well know, it is an absolute rabbit hole. You start going down that Alice in Wonderland rabbit hole, you can go as deep as you want or as shallow as you want. And you've gone deep by the sounds of it.
Deep to an extent, yeah. Look, the beginning of wisdom is emptiness, right? So the first thing I did, I just fell in love with whiskey. Full stop. A few months in sitting with the boys at Old Kempton, in those days Redlands, and listening to what's happening, listening to Bill Lark, just watching Sullivan's Cove, just understanding what's happening there. I thought there was a real business opportunity, so I knew, and I'm really, really dumb when it comes to chemistry, anything scientific, my basic skill is, basic maths. That's my skill. I've owned petrol stations since I was 22 and I still own them. So I fell in love with this industry, and I knew it was going to be a big effort for someone like me to really understand things that Bill Lark understands, or Robbie at the time he was with us at Old Kempton. So, but I just fell in love with it, and I had to. I understood I was never going to have the depth of knowledge that other people have as to what's happening in the whiskey making process, but I knew I needed to know enough at the surface, I guess, from a macro point of view. And I think that was enough to that was the extent of my ability. So it had to suffice. But, first, to answer your question, I gave up everything. I stopped property developing. I've stopped the service stations, and I devoted my whole time to whiskey. We kept talking about taking Tasmania to the world, but we didn't have the scale. And that would be a fair comment, Bill. Would you not agree?
No, you're right, John. That's
Yeah.
Yep. And
I remember saying to Bill, look, we've got to scale it up. And I'm not going to die wondering. I just, I'm celebrating my birthday today, so I just joined the 6-year-old this club.
Happy birthday, John.
Yeah, cheers, mate.
Cheers.
So, time was of the essence. So I guess I'm in just fast forward mode. I want to do all these things and try to enjoy it before I kick the bucket.
I get that.
So
what better thing to enjoy, really?
Yeah. So obviously, wherever I could talk to people about whiskey, I did. And Bill Lark came with me to Scotland and Ireland, and I went to almost every distillery that I know of in Australia, and then the internet. I was on the internet all the time. So slowly, brick by brick, I think I can hold a conversation about this industry with people, and what I don't know, but so that's where I'm at. And
was there anything in your learning going from a novice drinker to a producer? Was there anything that surprised you the most? Where you just went, oh,
yes,
is that how? Is that what?
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah. Look, yes. The simplicity of the whiskey making process. At the end of the day, it really is a very simple process.
Mm-hmm.
But the result, right, the elegance, the contrast, it's just amazing. I appreciate, but I just can't fathom how the diversity of whiskey that we get, if you just look at single malt, out of just barley, yeast, and water and wood, and that's what I love about it, So, So, for me, it's the simplicity, but the complexity that comes from that simplicity, and that's what I love about it. And obviously, I love drinking it. And I think
let's talk about your Scottish trip, because we both know a certain person, Ellie. So Ellie is he was a big supporter of mine right from the start, and actually helped me with my discussions with council to convince them, yes, we can have a little wee distillery at the back of a pub in a little spot on the map halfway between Lithgow and Capity. So, and Ellie's been a big supporter of mine from day one. But not only that, a big supporter of Australian whiskey. It's I remember the story. I went to Ellie's work, and he goes, and I was delivering a bottle of whiskey, and he goes, come on, come out. I've got to have a taste. I've got a couple of new releases, because he's always looking for those new releases. Right?
He's got them all.
Yeah, I know. It's getting harder and harder now. I sort of give him a heads up. I go, Ellie, this one's about to release. Get in there, sort of thing. But I went into this room, and there was just this huge collection of whiskey, and it was on a shitty little IKEA shelving system. Right? and I said to Ellie, mate, go and invest in a half decent shelving system, because if that thing collapses, I'd hate to think how much you're going to lose.
Yeah.
So, talk about that Scottish trip. So I know Ellie was on it, you were on it, Bill was on it. Just for those who haven't been to Scotland, just describe that sort of experience. And Bill, you had a gateway into distilleries all around Scotland. They welcome you in open arms. So I'd love to hear that trip, specifically that trip, but from both Bill and John, if that's okay.
Yeah. Bill?
No, well, it gave me great pleasure. Like when John got interested in this, he said, Bill, please, can we go to Scotland together, and can you show me the whiskey industry? I really want to learn. And John was quite serious about it. In fact, he drove me mad at times, wanting to understand every single detail. And John will remember the confusion. We'd see a sign on a still that said it was a 7,000 litres still, and yet the guy was saying he was only getting this, and John's working out, no, it's not what you told me, Bill. We can, we went right through that level of trying depth of understanding. But I've got to tell you, and as everybody knows, the Scottish industry love what we're doing here in Australia. And they welcomed John and myself and Ellie and Charlie and the other John with open arms. And they were just wonderful for us. And John, I believe, got to see whiskey like very few people get to see. We got really to the depths of distilleries and the bottom of stills and mash tuns and warehouses. And we had a great time. And I'll never forget, John came back from that, and from that moment on, there was no way John wasn't going to establish Callington Mill Distillery. He was going to do it. He was hooked. It was a great trip for John. I just loved being there, watching John's eyes, the sparkle, his smile on his face, and I knew we had him hooked.
Totally. It was like it's like I saw a different world, It was just like a little boy. I was like a 7-year-old in a candy shop, but I wasn't allowed to have all the candy. I could just have a section.
And now you own the store.
Well, a small store, a very small store. I mean, if you look at Callington Mill's capacity, I mean, our wash still, we charge that. I understand the words now, Bill. Charging. We charge that with 6,000 litres. Right. That's it. So that gives you the 9,000 because you need some. It's got 9,000 capacity, but you charge a wash still. You leave some air gap for it for the frothing and all that sort of stuff. But we're charging that with 6,000 litres, so that immediately gives you. That's one distillation. Gives you the context of what sort of volume that is. So we can do 2 wash runs a day. So we can. Our capacity is just 12,000 litres of wash per day. Now, if you do that 7 days a week, you'll end up with something like 500,000 litres of barreled whiskey per year. Now, that's if you run it 2 shifts a day, 7 days a week. But if you run it 5 shifts a day, pardon?
Just to put into context, how much are you doing, Crafty?
Wash
run.
1,000 litres a week.
How much was that?
1,000 litres a week.
Well, what's your wash still? What do you charge? What's the capacity of charging the wash still?
Well, that's really interesting. You asked that question, John. So it's a 970 litre still, and I charge it to 900.
Oh, okay.
And the reason I can do that is because I actually introduce anti-foam.
Okay. Yeah.
Peter Bignell uses soap. Other people use soap or food grade anti-foam. But if I've got a ferment which is a bit fiery, it can go up into the cone, and I've got to watch it like a hawk through the sight glass. But that's how I choose to do it. Yeah. Everyone chooses to do it differently.
Well, my wash still's 5 times bigger than yours.
Yeah, I know.
It's not that much. But in context, if you look at it, it's not that really. It's how often you want to flog the wash still. It's how often you want to use it, I think. So
What are your aspirations then for using it? You've got a still that size. You could do that much per week.
Yeah. That's a good question. The answer is I don't know, but I'll tell you what I'm obsessed with doing. Okay, it's to get to where I am now. That I've got the distillery, I've built it, it's there. I'm just ready to make more whiskey. We've been making Callington Mill whiskey for 3 years now, and I've put most of them in 30 litre barrels. Right, so we've got, I think, 400,000 litres, and I think 300,000 litres is in 30 litre barrels.
Why did you go from 30 litre barrels?
So I can get the whiskey out earlier.
Right. Okay.
Right, and it's a per litre. That's a more costly process, obviously.
That's a lot of wood. That's expensive.
It's a hell of a lot of wood, but I wanted to do my penance early. So I've done that now. So to answer your question, I'm going to continue I want to get to about 1.3 million litres. So I'm not even looking at sales. I'm just going to put head down, ass up, make whiskey, put 1.3 to 1.5, depending on money, into the bond rooms, and then turn the key off. So that's what I want to do. And whether I can sell it, whether I can't sell it, I've got no business plan at all. I've never sold a bottle. And Bill knows that, right? So, like I said, I'm not going to die wondering then. At some point, we're going to have to turn our attention to sales and marketing and see what we can do. But I'm not letting the production interfere with the sales. I'm committed to building the distillery, which I've done, building the bond rooms, building the bottling plant. I've got to build another cooperage because we sold Sheen to Lark. So, and put 1.5 million litres in the bond room. And then from that point on, I've achieved what I want to achieve. And then we will look to selling and correlate sales with production.
So what's your timeline then for full sales?
Well, we're ready. We've got limited. We've just released those 8, I think, releases. The leap of faith
which was a lot for initial releases.
Yes, and well, they're the whiskey I bought from as new make under the tutelage of Bill Lark at Old Kempton, obviously, and with Damien Mackey at Sheen. And I still am a shareholder of Old Kempton, but no longer an owner of Sheen. But I was an owner there. But I bought some whiskey there and we put it in barrels. And that was to be our first release. And then from that moment on, it'll be only Callington Mill whiskey. But the Callington Mill whiskey, we just tasted it, I think, a couple of weeks ago. Well, the Pedro Jimenez, Olorosos, Ruby Ports, Tawny Ports, whatever they call it, from Porto in Portugal. We think that sort of, I think Robbie bought a few casks off us.
Yeah.
Is that correct, Rob?
Yeah.
I don't know what you think of it, but we think it's there, but we're waiting a bit longer. And a lot of that liquid, we will then move to other casks to further evolve them. So in answer to your question, we will be releasing about 2 or 3 Callington Mill made whiskey by the end of this year. And then from next year on, I think we would have significant volume. But whether we can sell it or not is another story. But
I'm sure that won't be a problem.
if we don't sell it, only gets better, doesn't it, in barrels? The challenge is to not over oak it in the 30-litre casks.
Absolutely, that's a challenge.
Yeah.
Now I'm going to ask a question, John, and I'm going to walk through this very, very carefully because I get myself in the poo when I mention this, and so I just want to walk through this really, really carefully. Okay, so there's different ways of making whiskey.
Yes.
Or there's different ways of making a wash, right? I'm walking very carefully. So
I only know one way, but go on.
No. What I mean is number one, you can buy a wash from a brewery, and the brewery just makes it, and they just sell it. It's their recipe, and it's mass produced, right?
Yeah.
The second way is a distiller can approach a brewery and say, hey, here's my barley recipe, my mash bill. I want you to make it. And then the third way is a distiller makes their own wash. Okay. Now I started when I first started, I approached a brewery. I gave them my mash bill and said, hey, that's my mash bill. Can you please make that? You've gone the route and know my opinion. Each way makes the same ultimate product, right? There's nothing which is inferior with any of those, right? That's the point that I'm going to make straight off the bat, so no one can jump down my throat on this one, okay? But the question I've got for you is: you set up a brewery. You make your own wash, right? So is the brewery aspect of it completely separate from the distillery? And do you have people who have skill sets to brew? Or is it all just totally integrated in the business?
Well, they're two different functions, aren't they?
Yes.
There's no doubt about that. They're two different functions. Whether, once well, brewing's important, and the people that we have are well trained in that area, but they're multitask, so they know how to do the mashing, and they know how to do the distilling as well. And especially we as a team, when we sit down together and we lock those parameters in, we set the temperature in the mash tun, we set the duration in the mash tun, we set the ratio of the grist, we set what the flow out of the mash tun is going to be. We set what we think is the optimum sugar is going to be, right? I think bricks and all this sort of stuff. So, so we do trial and error, and then we lock in those parameters. So they're all important, But I think what you were saying is the three ways is: do we brew it ourselves in-house? Do we go to a third party and say, can you make it for us under these conditions, or in this method? Or then you just go to any brewery and say, just give us some wash, mate. It doesn't matter what, right? I mean, it's all whiskey at the end of the day. My issue is I would like personally to see everyone control the entire whiskey making process in-house. Especially, I would like to see that as an appellation, right? So I'm talking against my own methodology now. At Glenorchy, Cascade make our wash, right, and Cascade make it to our specification, which is using the two combination of yeasts that we use, and they ferment for 7 days because that's what we want. So they're doing it exactly how we want, but and I'm taking full advantage of that opportunity. Now, whether we want, what we as an industry have to ask ourselves long term is, do we want to keep allowing this flexibility in the appellation, or do we want to simply adopt maybe a Scottish model or an American model where you have to, where when you say you made this whiskey, it means you milled it, you mashed it, you fermented it, you gave birth to the laos yourself, and then you distilled it. That's my view is, if I invite you to my house for pasta and I got you a takeaway pasta, I think that's going to be a much better pasta than if I cooked it myself, right? But you can't deny that if I gave you, it's not a question of which is going to produce the better whiskey. I probably will never be able to make my wash better than what Cascade have been giving it to me. But what no one can take away from us at Oakland today is that we are making it ourselves. Whether it's better or not is a very subjective question. That's for someone else to answer. But that's not my only motivation in that. My motivation is, like that Frank Sinatra song, I did it my way. And that's what I want to claim, and that's what I personally would like to see Tasmania also claim.
I'd like to throw it to Bill now.
The
same question, because Bill, you and I know that it can be quite controversial, and I have deliberately raised this today because I thought it was a very interesting conversation to have. And like I said, I frame it all by saying there is nothing's inferior by any one of those processes, right? But what's your concept of the whole thing, and where do you see things going? And I'd be very interested in your comments, Bill. Sorry, I'm just throwing you under the bus, not Todd.
It's a nice day down here, Crafty. We're having a good night. This is actually a discussion that John and I have had many, many times. Sometimes we've had too much to drink when we've had this discussion, and other times
there's no such thing.
We take it quite seriously.
This one we had today.
And we had this discussion today, this very discussion. And look, when I started, we didn't have the ability to make our own wash. So we bought our wash from a small brewery. We asked them to make it with our yeast regime, just like John asked Cascade to do it and ferment it, all those things to our specification. And we did that. quite happily, and we made really good whiskey. There's no doubt about it. But I couldn't wait for the day that I was able to buy my own mash tun and learn to do my own brewing. I desperately wanted to do that. And I believe probably anybody entering our industry will want to get to that stage at some stage where they can be in control of it. But honestly, for a lot of people to start in this industry, they've had to go down this path of buying their own, buying wash from a brewery. Long term, I'd like to see, as John says, I'd like to see us get to that stage where the definition of Australian single malt whiskey is that we actually make our own wash. How we get to that point is the tricky part, because there are people that aren't ready for that at this stage. How do we get to that stage where we allow people to do it? In the meantime, so in arguing with John, and John and I are great mates, but we love to argue, not argue, we love to discuss things. And I put it to John, I said, so John, if I make my wash in my distillery, that's good. Yep, sure. And okay, if I need some more space in my distillery for stills and I have to move my brewing side of it to another part of the distillery in a separate room, is that okay? But I'm still in control. Yep, that's fine. So then what if I need that space? So I build a shed just next door and I put my brewing there, but I'm still in control, but I'm doing it next door. What if I get so busy I've got 20 staff working with me and helping me, and I've got some chaps and people brewing for me, and they're brewing it exactly the way I want for us, and they're part of the team, and it's just next door, but I have to move it to the block down the road because I need that space. So it's no longer in the same building, but it's down the road, but we're still in control. Now, that team of brewers I've had working with me and helping me and doing it my way, they're going to do it now under contract for me. They're and still to my specifications, and to me that's still okay. So what if it's a suburb away and it's a different group of people, but they're still doing it the way I want them to do it? I don't actually have a problem with it. Having said that, I would much rather we all did it in-house. That's where I got to that point. I couldn't
Question. It's important to have a question here. I want to catch Bill Lark out here because there's an inconsistency.
This is
now,
where we get
to
everything.
That, if you agree with that,
Bill and John, and let's go,
if you
guys.
agree with that, and he contracts out the brewing, and he agrees with there's no big deal, contract it out, third party doing it my way. Why not contract out the distilling as well? Let them distill it for you as well. Same thing, right?
Yeah.
That's my point.
You're right. And John, I can understand where it starts to get to a point where you and I can have a really good discussion about this and the industry. And look, I agree with you. And I would like to see our industry in Australia get to the stage where we can all do that. I'm just not quite sure we've come so far, and there's so many people involved. I can't quite see how we're going to get there straight away. And you agree with me too.
Well, we can.
Someone
I make a comment.
We've got somebody else wanting to make a comment.
I'll just hang on, Russ. Before that, I'll just interrupt because someone's put a comment on, which I think is very, very relevant. Whatever process you choose, it must be transparent to the end user.
Absolutely. That's
the key.
Fine, and it's a wonderful sentiment. But until you've done a startup distillery and you've done it on a very tight budget, and our aspiration is to get to, and we visited Callington on Tuesday, and I was gobsmacked. I'm a fitter and turner by trade. Craig and I have been operating since 2015.
Yep.
Robbie's in a similar situation to us. He's a startup. That facility, and we've visited a lot in Ireland and Scotland, but that facility, I've got to say, John, has just taken my breath away. I just thought it was a masterpiece. And we are aspiring to do something incredibly similar, which not copying, but our plan is to do something quite similar to what you've done. Those boys up at the Stillsmiths, Colmark, unbelievable skill, unbelievable technicians, their craftsmanship. And I've been in heavy industry, underground, above ground, smelters, power stations. I've seen a lot. I just couldn't believe what I was looking at. We initially trusted a brewer to do our very couple of first washes, and he did a reasonable job. We now go to a brewery, but we do it. We even set the mill. We don't just go there and say, can you make? We set the mill to what we want. We test the outcome. We do everything to create our wash, our yeast, our barley, everything about what we do, our temperatures, our fermentation time. We own it.
So there is actually a fourth way, Crafty, to what you were mentioning, and it's where you can actually go hire facilities, and we'll even go check the tanks the day before, make sure everything's clean, as if it was our own brewery, but we're just hiring the facilities. We'll go and do the mash. We'll go do everything ourselves. So we've got complete control.
Production. That's what
We've invested a couple of retired, father of two, at 63 years of age, young chap with two little kids. We've invested a couple of million in getting to the point we're at. We are looking at investing some serious money to get to the next stage. You can't hop to that stage too quickly and too easily. It is very, very difficult.
Well, I've got a twofold solution. I think any startup needs a 3-year grace or a period. So if you set up a distillery, by all means, no one's saying you should set up the whole milling mash in one hit, but there should be a time limit, I believe, right? Now, the other question is this. If you're not doing your own wash, you're not financially, someone else is making profit out of you. It's as simple as that. Well, there's no doubt about that, because now if you look, you can look at my brewing setup, and that is expensive. But then you look at Lark Distillery. If you go down to Cambridge and look at their brewing setup, it's just the miller there would be how much, Bill? A couple of grand.
I think I paid $6,000 for the grist mill and the mash tun and everything to go with it, John.
Well, they don't. They've still got that miller, that old miller. I'm
they still
assuming
use that.
It's like what we had at Sheen. We just had a miller, and then we had this bathtub, and we had an oar, right?
Yep.
So it's by all means, if you're a startup company, yes, you can. I'd recommend in the first 3 years you buy your wash, but it's in your interest at some point within that 3 years is to have a little capital investment where you can do your own brews. We're doing that at Old Kempton very soon, Bill.
Yeah, we are.
We're going to be doing that, and we're not going to spend extraordinary money there. But because what you do is you got two choices: you invest in a bit of capital, and you halve your wash costs, or probably save 70% of your wash costs, and you invest a little capital, or alternatively, you don't invest that little capital, and you always pay 70% above for that wash. So, number one, it's we give them a grace period. It's economical at some point to get rid of the middle person and have your own limited capital investment that you will pay you back, I think, tenfold over the years.
So, but is that forcing a financial position on people?
Sorry,
is that forcing a financial position on people?
How is it?
Well, if you're going to put a rule around that you from a financial perspective, it's going to be cheaper.
No, I'm just saying it's financially sensible as well.
Yeah.
From an operational side, I'm saying that in order to claim you make whiskey, I believe you have to mill it, mash it, ferment it, and distill it.
Yep.
And what we're saying for startups, we're saying, okay, in 3 years' time, have someone else make your wash for you, right? When you're starting up. But it is in your interest from 2 points of view. Number one, financially, and number two, operationally, especially if our appellation calls for this, so you can be captain of your own ship, master of your own destiny, and you can then claim that you're involved in the craft personally under your license.
Look, I'm going to add my personal story. So, us, Craig, and myself, we did the original Tasmanian Whiskey Academy course back in. When did we do it, Russ? What year was it?
Oh, what year was our IBD course? It was 2014?
2017, I think.
2017?
2017.
2017.
Anyway,
26.
I might-
26.
So
Yeah.
we visited a brewery, right? And they were making wash, and it was like, yeah, cool, yeah. And they were asking questions, and someone, I can't remember who it was, pipes up in our group and goes, "So how much do you charge for wash?" And everyone and all the potential distillers just went, "Shh, what's he going to say? What's he going to say?" Right? And he said, $1.50 a litre. This is for wash, right? This is not whiskey. This is wash. So for those who don't understand, this is just an intermediate material, right? And I went, "Oh, cool! I finally got a figure. I finally know, what Tasmanians are paying for wash. Fantastic." So I went back to the brewery that I was talking to, and I don't know why. And John, you'll laugh from a business standpoint. I said, in Tasmania they pay $1.50 for wash, so I'm prepared to pay $2.40 a litre. And he went, "Done." What the hell was I thinking?
You idiot.
For 1 year, I was buying my wash, right? For my recipe, $2.40 a litre. And then I started making it, and oh my God, did I open up a world of pain. It took me 2.5, 3 years before I finally got to a point where I went, okay, I think I now sort of understand what I'm doing, but maybe I don't. So to get, there was a painful journey to get to brew, I can tell you.
We, Crafty, when we did our first couple of washes, we did it down at a brewery called Prickly Moses, which is in the Otway Ranges, down in the beautiful surf coast.
That's near my hometown of Colac.
Beautiful.
In between Colac and Lorne. Oh, well, further down towards Barongaroo.
Know the land. Yep.
And he's a real character, the brewer. $1.30 a litre. And we did that for a couple of washes but it was a long way to travel and it was doable. We ended up doing them. We do them now at a brewery not far away from us for 90 seconds.
Wow.
But we do it all, and we do have total control. But the thing I'll say about, and I totally understand John Ibrahim's emotion around this, and I do. But when you're a startup, it's not about just. And for us, we've got families, we've got a limited amount of money. You're dealing with council, you're dealing with excise, you're dealing with regulations, you're dealing with all the safety factors, which most distilleries aren't across yet. You're trying to grow your product, you're trying to do so many things, and and we would love to have been creating our wash on site. We were dealing with space. We're flat out. We're about to build a new shed just to mature our whiskey. We dealt with so many things. We knew we needed a cellar door. I didn't leave that cellar door for 2 years. We were there 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, serving customers, cleaning up at the end of the night, making whiskey in the middle of the night. The amount of effort that we put into, and then, traveling 15 kilometres down the road to a brewery and creating our own wash. Appellation's a great thing. Anyone questioned the effort we put into making the best product we could, with our skill and our knowledge and learning constantly. But, we would love to have had that ability on site. And we will one day. We definitely will. And we will have, hopefully, something like Callington, because we've done the hard yards in some shitty little setups that have taught us about all the things that we don't want to have to deal with and all the things we'd love to have. But the journey's different for everyone.
Yeah, and the timeline.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely.
We want to grow our own barley. I mean, you can take Appellation back to ploughing the paddock.
Yeah.
So the realities, the outcome is extremely important, and the quality of your product and your customer opinion of your product is gold, because if they don't buy it, then you've got a shitload of whiskey to drink. But there's so many multitudes of journeys and everybody else's travel along the path of starting starting a distillery and ending up in hopefully the best situation you can and making the best product you can.
And
It's an
everyone's
amazing journey. It's an amazing journey.
You said it, mate. Everyone is on a different journey, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of, I call them mums and dads operations. Mine is a mums and dads operation, right? So you work with what you've got, right? And my story is my freaking mash tun. I could not. My shed was a 60 square meter shed when I started. It's 120.
It's a wonderful mash tun. It's not it's a wonderful mash tun.
Oh, it's a wonderful mash tun. So the story of my mash tun, there was not enough room in the shed, right, to brew. And so I talked to Burnsy, Mark Burns, right? Burns Welding Fabrication, and makes freaking amazing whiskey. And he said, mate, go and buy a boat trailer. Go and buy a boat trailer. Bring it down to Griffith. We'll cut it up. We'll play around with it. Go and get an old milk vat, and I'll make you a mash tun. So Lee Atwood from Backwoods sourced me an old milk vat. He drove it to Voyager Craft Malts. Actually, it was an event. So I got my milk vat, took it to Burnsy. He cut the axle on the boat trailer, moved it back, repositioned it so I could actually pull my mash tun on the back of a boat trailer in and out of my shed. And for Todd, how many years did we do that? 3 years, almost. 3 years, right? So that
3 years. I was going to say too many.
That is where we started, because could not afford to do anything else, right? But wanted to get into brewing. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is everybody is on a different journey. There's no right or wrong way, but this industry is built on large operations and small mums and dad operations, and it's so important that it's such a diverse industry, and I think that's what makes our industry really cool. Is there's so many different facets to it. So is
that not certainly part of the I guess the beauty of the Australian whiskey scene is that
absolutely
there aren't really any rules. It is very free. It is very free form. You can experiment.
The parameters are a bit bigger. There are still rules.
Yeah.
And we're adhering to the rules. No one's making single malt out of wheat.
No.
Okay, so there are, what we're saying is there's different methodologies, I guess, or factors that play in the process. It doesn't have to be just under your own license, which I totally accept. But it's very important, because at the end of the day, we want to make single malt and other whiskies, but there's a category of that, and you have to play within those rules, or you're just simply not making a single malt whiskey, are you? You know.
That's a good point. Probably to finish that discussion on, John.
Sorry.
That's a good point to finish that discussion on, John.
Yeah. I'm going to take it another direction now. I'm going to take it another direction. Guys, just a minute. Let's talk about our competitive edge on the world stage. And I'll just open it up, and then we'll go into discussion, right? So to make single malt whiskey, right, in Australia, basically play by the rules, 2 years in wood, keep your nose clean, do your time, you got single malt whiskey, right? We don't have a lot of restrictions on the type of wood we use, and we don't have the restrictions like the Scottish have in regards to historically they can only use wood that has been proven to be used previously. Then you come to America, and America have huge constraints on the way they make whiskey. So in Australia, we have a major competitive edge. Now, put that to one side and then look at the other side of it. You've got people that are saying Australia needs a lot more regulation, control on how we make our single malt whiskey. And then you got the others that go, no, that's our competitive edge. Play by the established rules and go and make the best whiskey you can with whatever you want, as long as you're compliant. So, John, what's your thoughts on that? And Bill, what's your thoughts on that?
I'll quote Bill. I'm going to quote you, Bill.
I'm listening. I'm listening.
Well, the appellation, as recommended, is that we could mature our whiskey in wood. Whereas in Scotland, it's oak, right? And in America, it's bourbon is virgin oak, American oak.
Yep.
So that's, if you look at a pyramid type, they're up there. Their constraints here. Scotland's here, and we're down here. Now, I said to Bill, what if people use, I don't know, gum tree wood and all this, and it comes out bad? And I'll never forget what you said, Bill. You said, no one will be stupid enough to do that, John. Do you recall?
Here we go.
In principle, what you're saying, Crafty, is 100% right. There's probably a wood out there that's going to create a fascinating whiskey, right? An exciting whiskey, and hopefully its origin is unique to Australia or to Tasmania, or and that would produce. I'm not aware that we've discovered this wood yet. Okay, so what I think at this point in time, what has proven to work is European oak, French oak, American oak. Now, should we restrict it to just oak, or should we broaden it to wood? I'm in two minds. My adventurous side says it should be wood, because there's something that we can potentially, as long as what comes out the other end is something that the public will perceive as good whiskey, and they'll buy it and they'll drink it. But the other thing is, by having a wider scope is, people might just get cheap wood because they don't want to buy oak, and you know what I mean, mature it there, and then it becomes a downward spiral. That's the thing with having more flexibility, right? So it can work in your favor, but I guess it also can be detrimental if it doesn't work in your favor.
But let me throw something else, John, just to cut you off.
Can I just put some context to what John said?
Can I just put some context to that, Bill? Let me just add one thing. So when I'm talking about wood, I will use the example of Diageo. So Diageo had access to tequila barrels, and they wanted to take tequila barrels and use them in Scotland. But because
that's oak wood.
It was oak. But historically, because they could not use it because there was no historical precedent being set with tequila, they couldn't do it. In Australia, we all went, Yeti.
I'm all for that. I thought you were talking about gum tree.
Talking about that.
I thought you were talking about maybe gum tree or.
No, I am. But I'm also talking about the fact that we can go into woods, we can go into oak that's had other things in previously.
Absolutely.
What the world cannot do. And
absolutely, we should. But what we shouldn't do, and Bill agrees with me on this, is start to get an oak barrel and go make a Christmas pudding or custard, or make some sort of gluey, boil some fruits in some pressure cooker, squeeze it, sugar and all this sort of stuff, bring it out, and then layer it inside the oak barrel, right, artificially manufacture it, and then pump new make in there and say we're going to get. I wouldn't like to see that.
Why not?
Because I think you might as well just mix it with the whiskey.
Bill, do you want to chime in now?
Yeah, I want to go right back to that first comment that John made, and he said, I can't even remember what you said, but to put some, that I think people would be stupid to use anything.
No, they wouldn't be stupid enough to use something else other than oak.
And the reason I say that is because I recognised right back when we started that malt whiskey has a character and flavour that comes from malted barley, yeast and water, but matured in oak barrels. Now, we could put it in a red gum or a eucalypt. We could put it in Huon pine. I asked the Cooper in South Australia to make me a barrel out of leather wood, and he said he would, but it would leak and everything else. But what I started to realise is we all love our single malt, or I do. I'm talking for myself. I loved my single malt because I enjoyed the character and flavour that came from maturing in an oak cask. I could put it in something else, and we've done that at Old Kempton Distillery. We put it in, I think it was a redwood cask or something. Red gum cask.
I'm looking at that right now, actually. There was a red gum cask from Kempton.
Yep, we did that. But I made sure it was very clear to the people that bought it that, have you ever asked the question, why don't we mature in something other than oak? Well, we did this and released it, and we put a little statement with each bottle that was sold to say, if you've ever asked yourself that question, here's an opportunity for you to decide, should we be maturing in something else? We didn't say it was good or we liked it or anything else, but here's a chance for you as a consumer, because we don't get that chance very often, to make your own mind up about this issue. But I just felt if we use something other than oak, yes, we possibly can, but we're now having to educate the consumer about a whole different product. It's a different product to what I loved drinking, and the reason why I wanted to make single malt whiskey, because the flavour and character of that drink came from whiskey that was matured in an oak barrel. That's why I said to John, people can do it, but they'd be stupid to, because it's a whole nother drink they're going to have to educate the public about. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't do it. I just think they'd be stupid to do it, but let them do it. I'm not saying don't do it. But that's the reason I said that to John, and I'm sticking by that. I love single malt whiskey. I've always loved. I got into this because I love Scottish single malt, and I wanted to see if we could make an Australian or a Tasmanian single malt, and that's what I'm doing. Guys,
this is a really good heavyweight discussion we're having tonight, right? And there's distillers that are watching this and going, wow, this is great. We're having fun. We're really having fun, right? And we're getting some great...
I've seen a couple of comments from our very good mate, Gary Hun.
Gary's on. Youngie's on as well.
We should have this a live discussion at the whiskey show. And I think it'll be brilliant.
It'll be a very long, heated discussion.
Gary's made some very good comments tonight too, by the way.
There's been some great comments tonight. Right, I want to change this up completely because I like throwing people under the bus. And even though we said we weren't going to do it, we're going to do it. So, Luke, hit the button. We're going to do it.
I'm sorry, Todd. I'm sorry.
And now it's time for Throw the Todd under the bus.
So, just so you know, Todd's my right-hand man. I thought you'd love it. I thought you would. So, Todd's my right-hand man, and I've been an apprentice I did my own self-apprenticeship for 3 years. I refused to call myself a distiller, and Todd was the apprentice's apprentice. So I now call myself a distiller, and Todd is the apprentice. And the apprentice has some questions. John, here comes your questions. Todd, it's yours.
Such a freak.
Fantastic.
I'm going to get a beer, by the way.
Yeah, that's why, because he wanted to leave. He wanted to move out of the conversation.
It runs so much better when he's not in it.
Yeah. 100%.
John, if you were to give someone a word of advice if they're just starting out in the process of setting up their own distillery, what would you give them as just a little nugget of advice?
That's the good time. Don't do it.
Well,
hang on a restricted budget, what advice would you give?
Very good point. Look, ultimately, we're all in this business. That's the end game.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how you do it, whether Cascade makes your wash or whether you make the wash or you buy new make, and at the end of the day, that's the end game. We're trying to produce something that's really, really good quality. What I would do is the Tim Duckett model, and probably even more fast forward than that. There's enough whiskey now that's matured. There are distilleries now. We just sold whiskey to Robbie, right? right? And there's whiskey out there. If I was starting a business, I would approach distilleries and buy matured whiskey, and I'd put it straight into my label. Obviously, it's transparent. I might then even evolve it in different casks, add my own dimension to it, and then go straight to market. Try to see, do I like selling whiskey? Can I sell whiskey? I would work at the front and then work backwards. That's how I would do it. You know, so either buy matured whiskey or buy new make from a distillery, put it away, mature it away, and then go straight to market as soon as I possibly can. And then from that, get some positive cash flow, get some supply, and then you can go into distillation, have someone make you brew, and then work backwards from that model. That's how I would do it.
So just talking about that cash flow model, the trend is generally to do a gin or a vodka or something or other that is very quick to produce, quick to get out. You don't have to age it in order to get that cash flow. So are you sort of saying maybe push that aside, don't worry about that, or and go straight for the independent bottling, as it will?
Yeah. I mean, I've never known. Well, we couldn't do it at Kempton. We couldn't do it at Sheen, and I'm certainly not doing it at Callington Mill. To be able to make gin and sell gin and market gin and make a profit out of gin so it can fund whiskey, I've never heard that was feasible or that happened. We were unable to do it, and we sell a fair bit of Poltergeist gin. So, you know, the margins are very small. It's a competitive business. And even if you sell X amount per year, when you look at all your costs to produce it, the excise and the marketing costs, you're left with very, very little. So if you want to be in the single malt business, I think you need to be in the single malt business. And there's two ways of doing it. You start from
Can I just
the grain forward or from the bottle backwards.
I can see John, you and I are going to be great enemies. Can I just butt in there? Sorry, all respect. Can I just say my gin, which Craig and I produce, and we run a cellar door. And if you're thinking cellar door, our boys on a busy Saturday might knock out in 5 hours 500 cocktails.
Wow!
Join is a wash with gin. We've in a little tin shed on a 7-acre paddock in a wine area, which is a significant tourism area. They will be swimming in gin behind the bar at the end of the day. That enables us to make whiskey. Petrol has enabled you to make whiskey.
Yeah.
You've had an investment in something else that has allowed you to invest in making whiskey. That investment, though it's similar, and petrol's a distillation, fuel stations are what you've made your money out of, allows us to make whiskey. It's about getting to the end result, and our end result is going to hopefully, I would just love to think it's going to be somewhere near what you've done at Callington. I just think it's the greatest.
I hope so too, Ross. But you've got obviously a very...
You're not bastardising the journey by getting there. You've got to, whatever means you've got to get there, you've got to, But Craig and I have had this dream of creating the best single malt whiskey we can create.
Sure.
And we will do it.
You'd be the exception, not the rule, wouldn't you?
No,
like your cellar door is... I mean, we can ask Robbie about his cellar door, or me about Old Kempton about our cellar door, or Sheen about... We just didn't have those numbers.
You would love to see what goes on in our place. So please come down and have a look.
Yeah, I'd love to. Yeah, absolutely.
I think, Russ, you've got a very unique model. I'll explain my model. So I started in 2015 as an independent bottler. So I started, and at that stage, I didn't know I was going to have a distillery down the track. So I started buying new make spirit and putting into barrels and maturing it. I actually matured it at Blackgate Distillery in Mendooran, New South Wales. When I had 10 barrels, Ryan rang me up and goes, mate, fuck off, find your own shed. You're taking up too much of my space. And when he did that, that's what put me on my journey, right? So for a number of years, so 2018, 2017, 2018, I think it was. So I only had whiskey, and at my cellar door, all I had was whiskey. I was releasing whiskey 2018. Yeah, I was releasing whiskey. I then had a discussion with good friends of mine, Karoo Distillery in New South Wales. And I said, guys, I really need a gin. I need a white alternative to whiskey. Karoo, exactly. And that one has won world's best contemporary gin. So those guys taught me
cracker. Absolute cracker.
Gin. That was a game changer for us. Our cellar door just took off because not everyone likes whiskey. So you have a white alternative. And that was a real fundamental shift in the way we moved forward on cellar door. So we now have, we're sort of working on a vodka. We've got gin. We've got whiskeys. We're going to have a liqueur. So I think personally, with a cellar door approach, it's so important to have that diversity of products because that will maximize your opportunities for sales. And in all honesty, 98% of people that come to our cellar door buy something. If we just had whiskey, we wouldn't be doing it. We wouldn't be doing it. The gin is a big part of the equation for us.
The cellar door is a marketing function. You know, we attract. We're all about making the best whiskey we can make. But who's going to know about us? And we haven't splashed out on advertising, and we haven't run around Melbourne, you know, with a sandwich board on going, we make whiskey, would you buy it? But if we with our cellar door and our markets, we go to markets. You can make some good money, but you're marketing your product, you're exposing it. And we have people come into our venue and they go, oh, can I get married here? Can I have my 30th here? We go, this is a marketing tool for that business over the other side of the paddock, which is a distillery. It's all about the distillery. It's all about people getting to know what we do and understand what we're creating and enjoying. And just
on that, if I can interject, what is your website? What is your
Ballerine Distillery, which is
Ballerine Distillery. Put that up just so everyone knows.
Yeah, have a look at it. Look, it's a magic little spot.
Russ, you're the mystery guest.
Yeah, we didn't come down to be a party. I've just cooked Lynn and Bill and Robbie tea.
Hang on, can someone explain to me? Someone explain to me why is Robbie there? Robbie, that's not Tasmania. What are you doing there?
Now,
so you get lost
because he barracks for Celtic.
He's still waiting. You know,
he's still waiting for his crumb sausage.
He heard about the crumb sausage.
I heard there was crumb sausage. I couldn't resist. That was it.
You know, it's a marketing tool too. So we actually tie in beautifully with our local wineries. We're in a beautiful region. It's heavily covered by the local tourism board. Visit Geelong. You know, it's just it's part of that successful. At a startup, it's part of the successful formula of getting to where you want to get. Visit Victoria, who market the state all over the world, said to us before we were open, we want to know when you're going to open, because we'd created so much interest with what we were proposing to do. And I said, oh, well, we're not sure yet because I'm still trying to finish the joint. We were hands-on. I was up to my knees in mud. We laid cable. We did everything. We did the lot.
Oh, you're a drive.
She said, we've posted you in London as a must-visit destination. I said, visit what? We don't know what it's going to be yet. Like, it was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. Anyway.
So, look, there was just one really good question that Gary Hun posted a while back. He was asking John, and I'd like to hear John's answer to this too, was why did you decide to set up a distillery in Oaklands, Tasmania, John?
Yeah, good point. Good question.
That was a question that Gary raised earlier. John?
Good question.
I'm happy to scroll back
let me set it up at Callington. No. Well,
No, that's not it.
no. It.
Go, John.
The first thing is, I wanted the whiskey distillery to be in Tasmania. The second thing, I wanted a heritage significant town. So I love Richmond. There's a lot in Tasmania, but I just thought the location of Oaklands and the
Actually, sorry, it was David. It was David and Carolyn Taylor.
Oh, sorry, it was David and Carol. Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, hey guys, carry on, John.
First Tasmania, then it was Oaklands. Oaklands is strategically placed on the Midlands Highway, almost in the heartland of Tasmania, within reach of Launceston and Hobart, and it's just a magnificent town. The other thing, the distillery had to be in a heritage significant site. So you've got Sheen, that was at Sheen Estate, Old Kempton Distillery at Dysart House, and then Callington Mill. Callington Mill is a magnet for tourism. It attracts about 50,000 people a year, and it's a significant historical location. So that's what attracted me there. I thought I could leverage the branding of Callington Mill to a startup whiskey distillery because I don't have a brand. So Tasmania, Oaklands, and if you go to Oaklands, there's a beautiful lake there, there's a golf course there, there's bed and breakfasts there, there's beautiful cafes, and it's on the way. I think it's going to be as good as Richmond in the future. And the other thing that attracted me, as I said, was the windmill itself. It's the only functional windmill of its kind in the southern hemisphere. So I just fell in love with the site, and that's why I wanted to build it there.
That's very, very cool. Very cool. Now I'm going to ask a question, John. So, what do you think of the Australian whiskey landscape, and where do you think the Australian whiskey landscape will be in, say, 5 years? You've got a very interesting insight into it all, so I'm curious to hear what your thoughts are.
To
now
be honest with
and
you,
in 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, I just have gut feels. I mean, really, I have no market research into anything.
Yeah, just gut feel.
Yeah. Well, if you travel the world, the one thing I noticed with all wines and with all whiskies, I mean, once I was with my family in Hawaii, and you open up the menu and it's got Japanese whiskey, Scottish whiskey, American whiskey. So for me, I just always thought, well, why isn't Australian whiskey there? So as far as I'm concerned, I think there's two categories. Probably going to get people upset with me now, but I think there's certainly an Australian category, but I believe there's a Tasmanian category, personally. And I think the microclimate and the region of Tasmania, for me, is what appeals. And I think that's a category that I think that we can take to the world. So whether it's obviously it's Australian with a branch that's called Tasmanian. I think there's a vacuum there, the way alcohol generally is marketed as regions. This is why I think there's a category Australia, and Starwood have stepped up to that, and Archie Rose obviously have stepped up to that, and they'll fill those gaps. I think Lime Burners,
yeah, Cameron Sign for sure.
Sullivan's Cove, Lark, Hellier's Road. So there's a vacuum on the world market and for other whiskey. And I think Australians have proven themselves, I think, per capita in the world in every aspect of life, that we're one of the best. I mean, we're the biggest drinkers per capita in the world, right? So, we're probably one of the best sporting people. We're one of the best sporting people
just in
per capita in the world. In World War II, we were the smallest army, but the most feared army. I mean, in the world. I think Australians generally get a reputation worldwide for being very good at any endeavour that they undertake. And I think, I'm sure that the whiskey category in 5 years would be 5 times where Starwood are. So I think there's definitely a market there to be had.
to grow. I'll give you a little story. So you know Greg Ramsey,
Yeah.
the Ratho House, Ratho Farm, I should say. So New Zealand Whiskey Company. And I remember Greg telling me, I stayed at his joint once, and I remember him telling me around a fire, drinking whiskey, and he goes, the New Zealand Whiskey Company, just to have the name New Zealand, right, straight away implies cleanliness, food security, all these different factors. So he goes, in America, you mention New Zealand and people go, there's a degree of comfort. And I think New Zealand and Tasmania have that same degree of comfort, you know, from a food security standpoint, from a purity standpoint, and everything else. So the brand Tasmania, the brand New Zealand, I think they're very, very aligned, in my own personal opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. But I'll tell you what, the mainlanders making whiskey are kicking ass.
There's no doubt, no doubt.
Russ, would you like to comment on that?
I just said to Craig, we're about one of the closest things on mainland Australia to Tassie. We're the closest link. So we will form a brotherhood there.
We did tonight with the club sausage.
As long as they don't cut the cable again.
Oh, you're showing your allegiances.
I'm surprised when they cut the cable at Frankston that Tassie didn't drift away.
Oh, here we go.
It was Australia that was going to drift away, mate.
No, not just sink. Well, it is sinking. New South Wales, Queensland.
Yeah, they are right now.
We're all Australian. We're all Aussies, and we have an Australian Distillers Association.
Look,
And,
the last week at
all
the
have a main character.
Australian Whiskey Awards, So Bill was there, I was there, and there was other Australian distillers, and it was just a celebration of Australian whiskey, wasn't it, Bill? It really was.
That's a premier event now for me. That's a real an event that just brings our whole industry together in such a wonderful occasion. I really take my hat off to Nico Devlin for what he's done there. You were there, as you say. It was a tremendous night, and we were a really collegial industry on that night. It was a wonderful thing. I'll just say, though, listen, Russ is from Victoria. You can always tell a Victorian. You just can't tell them much.
Look, it's not that we have to be right. It's that we
where
are
were you
right.
Where were you born? Where were you born, Bill? Where did you grow up?
In Australia.
It's where he matured that matters.
Well, as a Victorian,
Very
from
good.
the same region,
Good point.
I can agree. We are always right.
See, that raises a good question. So, John, you live in Sydney, right?
No.
Is that correct?
No. I that's a tough question. I had to fill in a form the other day. In the last 3 years, I've spent 90% of my time in Tasmania. So.
Oh wow, really?
Yeah, 90%.
So where's home?
Yeah, where's home?
Where the heart is.
What is the tax office say?
That's all right, John. I live in South
Mate,
York.
it's Tasmania, and that's that. I've got to. I don't like Sydney much, to be quite honest. Now,
Yeah,
but my mum, my
it's been a bit
brothers,
wet
sisters,
lately.
the whole family's here, and I've got my 2 young boys that, they just don't want to leave Sydney. So, COVID was very good for us because we just spent all our time in Tassie.
So where do you live in Tassie? What, in Hobart?
Probably 50-50 between. I've got a unit in Hobart, and I stay at Oaklands. I've got a house in Oaklands.
Yeah.
So
tell us about your team. Who's the main guys at the distillery and the brew house?
Trouble here. We've now got a team of about 30 people.
30
now. 30, yeah. Because don't forget we've got Coopers as well.
Yeah. So the cooperage is called Tiger, is that right? Or I've got that wrong?
Yeah, Tasmanian Tiger Cooperage, but we're bringing that under Callington Mill, so it'll be under the Callington Mill logo. So
Right.
we've sold that to Lark, but the Coopers come with us, obviously. So we've got a team of 30 people, and I tell you something. I can start with my CEO, I guess, Russ Moaz, but there's so much work unloading containers, loading containers, fixing barrels, racking whiskey, taking barrels to the distillery, making rackings for the barrels.
Yeah.
All that work is done by a lot of our staff, and in my opinion, they're the backbone. They are the salt of the earth. They're the backbone of our business. So every single member, and I'm not just saying that lightly, they're so important to our the function of the overall business. So, that's where it starts for me. And so from that, you've got our distillers as well, Blair, Jack, Benny, and then Risky manages the whole show. Every single one of them plays a very, very important role. So, I just couldn't, you can't say this is more important than that role. So,
You're never going to achieve anything.
Yeah. So I just really, really appreciate and respect. They're all dedicated, and Bill knows them all really one by one. I've never ever expected, and this is something I found in this industry. If you look at petrol, and you look at the staff in that sort of industry, they're all they don't want to be in this game. So they're working in the service station industry. They're all transitioning through.
Yep.
Whereas in our industry, everyone's there, the passion, the way they make the barrels, the way they repair the barrels, the pride in every aspect of that business. It's just infectious. It really is infectious. And if they're in this industry, they want to stay and grow in this industry. So whether they leave my distillery and go to Lark or vice versa, they're looking to further their own careers, but they're all looking to cement a future in this industry. And this industry is a huge industry globally. So it offers a lot of pathways to promotions and pathways to end up having your own distillery. I mean, there's a perfect example of it is Robbie, who was with us at Redlands, and look where he is now. And, it makes me so proud to see that in the industry.
Yeah, it is cool. I mean, Robbie and I met years ago, and I remember the day, and it was like it was such a cool thing, and we kept in touch over the. Hey, what was that?
You got a Celtic. He said it with your life, mate.
I remember, but it's people in this industry. One of the things I really love about the industry is just the passion, the camaraderie, and I very much personally subscribe to Bill's philosophy: a rising tide floats all boats. A lot of people helped me to get to where I am, and I've got mentors, and so when people come to me and ask questions, I try and help as much as possible, and I just personally hope that the industry stays like that and the elbows don't come out, and it goes the way of full-on commercial industries. And I do believe that, there's some really good people in the industry, and we're doing some good shit, and share your good shit, and we grow as an industry. That's just me.
Oh, no, I have no doubt about that. Yeah.
There you go. Cool. There's a little bit of Robbie love for you.
Guys, we're at 1:39, so we can push on a bit more.
Actually, I wanted to touch on the cooperage side of things.
Yeah, go.
So you're building your own cooperage.
Well, we've already got one. You've
got your own cooperage,
3-4 years,
which is obviously unusual for a Australian distillery to have your own. Why have you gone that route?
Oh, because it's very simple. Because to make whiskey, you need barley, I've forgotten now, yeast and water. but you also need wood. I mean, wood's the most expensive part of it, and it sleeps there for between, 2.5 years, 3 years plus, 10, 15 years. So, yeah, for me, it was all about the wood from the start. I just thought to myself, you just walk into the bond rooms in Scotland. I loved looking at the distillery, but what I loved more was walking into those bond rooms, those old cellars, or miles and miles and miles of barrels, and the smell of that whiskey, and drinking at Glenfiddich from that vat bill, if you remember.
Yeah, I do.
Climbing up the ladder and just drinking whiskey out of that vat, and just drinking whiskey out of the barrels. For me, it was all about the barrels. And I wanted to build a cooperage and try to resurrect that craft and have people try to the best of our abilities to manage our wood regime. And that's what inspired me to do that. And we're not perfect at it, but we're learning and we'll get better. And our backbone is the cooperages we have aligned with in Spain and Portugal. So I didn't know it at the time, but when I did a deal with our Spanish coopers, they ended up being the same coopers as Macallan. I couldn't believe it, because I just love everything about Macallan. So
John,
wood's very, very important to us.
I'll tell you my story of Macallan. So I visited Macallan and I was so excited, right? It's like, oh, how cool is this? And this was the old Macallan, not the new Macallan.
Yeah.
This was back in about 2012, I think, from memory. So I rock up, really cool, get on a tour, and I get this 18-year-old kid, and she goes, I just started 2 weeks ago. I was like, oh, no. I had all these questions, and she couldn't answer any of them, and I felt terrible asking the questions, so I just kept my mouth shut, and I was like, it was such a lost opportunity.
Yeah.
One of my best Scottish experiences is, or two of them I've got. One is Brookladdy. I went there in 2009, and it was fundamental for me starting my journey, Brookladdy. I've been a follower since early 2000s. But the second one was Glendronach. So I knew someone who worked at Glendronach, and he couldn't be there when I was there, but he'd organised the VIP trip for me, which included going out to the barrel house and sampling all these different casks. Oh my God, it was just such a magical experience, and you can relate to that, I'm sure. It's just those really special moments when someone pulls something out of a cask, pops it, right, pulls it out, pours it in the glass. God knows how much they spill on the floor, and you go, I don't believe this.
Yeah.
Those times are magical, aren't they, John?
Oh, the best. The trip I had with Bill Lark was the best trip of my life. It really was the best trip of my life. Loved it. Yeah.
So which distilleries did you go to?
Oh, God. My only regret there is when we were at Lefroy and Ardbeg, and I was drinking all this peated whiskey, and I was just hating it, right? And Bill Lark was saying, you'll change. I said, never. I just hated peated whiskey at that point in time. My God, I'd love to go back to drink all that whiskey. Because somewhere on this journey, Bill Lark said it'll happen, and it happened. I remember when it happened. It's a long story. But
my best Scottish experience is sitting next to me.
It's only you, man.
So I just love peated whiskey now. Just absolutely adore it. And that's something we're going to do at Callington Mill. Colmark haven't perfected it yet, but they're building equipment that we will draw unpeated barley or malted barley, wet it again, and then infuse it with Tasmanian peat, and then put it in a separate.
Okay, so you're going to do your own peated barley, Tasmanian peated barley.
Well, you wouldn't have me buy Scottish peated barley, would you?
Well, you can't call it Tasmanian then, can you?
Well. This is why it's important.
It does raise an important question because a lot of Australian distillers are importing Scottish peated barley, right? Because they do it the best, right? And it makes a lot of sense. The Tasmanians, I'm using Tasmania as an example. They do their own peated barley, right? And
not everyone in Tasmania.
You can talk about that. And others have played around with it. Cam Symes, he's doing his own. He's got peat bogs in WA. But from a purely smoke level, Scottish peated barley just seems to work, doesn't it? Bill, what's your thought?
History. They've done it for a long enough time. They know what they're doing.
Yeah. Bill, what do you think?
Well, you did right. I mean, I love my Scottish peated malts as much as John does now. He's hooked.
Welcome to the dark side.
When we started our process that John talked about of smoking already created malt over a peat fire here in Tasmania with Tasmanian, it was never about trying to copy an Ardbeg or a Lefroy or Lagavulin. They're special whiskies and I love them. What we were trying to do was introduce a Tasmanian peat into our malt, which gave our whiskey a sweetness and a depth of character, and a light smoky note in a balanced way. That's kind of all we've ever tried to do down here. So we're not trying to pretend to be Lefroy or Lagavulin or I love those to bits. It's just we're different. That's all.
Look, it comes down to also the composition of the peat, doesn't it? I mean, you compare.
Our peat's almost identical to Scotland.
It's totally different, isn't it?
No. We've had peat bog experts come to visit our peat bog in Tasmania, 40 of them from around the world. They crawled all over our peat bog, wetting their pants, so excited, digging it up and holding it in their hand. And at the end of it, they declared, whatever you think, your peat is 99% similar to Highland Scottish peat. It's simply decomposed sphagnum moss. And
wow, so Highland peat is really,
it's as clean and sweet as a lot of Highland sphagnum peat. Sure, the stuff on Isla has to be different because it's got the influence from the sea and all that lovely salt air and everything else. But otherwise, no, the reality is our peat in Tasmania is almost 100% identical to Scottish Highland peat.
Wow, that's cool.
According to the experts.
Yeah, no.
Well, you don't argue with the experts, really, do you?
No.
Guys, we're going to wrap this up. You guys are staying online because we're going offline. We're going to have some fun now. So, is there any guys? John, do you want to wrap up? Bill, do you want to wrap up?
This is John's night. I'll let John wrap up.
John, wrap up, mate. I hope you had fun.
Oh, mate, look, I always have fun. You never not have fun in this business. Look, for me, it's I've always felt the Tasmanian whiskey family. Well, I'm not always felt. They've always helped me, and they've always welcomed me. And I just hope that I've my fear was to let them down. So after 7 years, I'd like to think that that I've done my time and hopefully I've added some value to the Tasmanian brand because I hold that brand so dear to my heart. And that's it. We're just having fun, and I'm just so proud to be part of the Tasmanian family. That's it.
Mate, it's been an absolute pleasure. Tonight has been really good because we have gone in so many different directions. Some people will love it. Some people will be rather pissed off. But
I think we can safely say that this has been our most robust discussion so far.
By far.
That's what passion does.
Passion does, my friend.
Passion does.
Totally 100% agree. It's all about the passion. So we'll wrap it up. Luke, I'll leave it to you. Talk about our sponsors, Luke.
Yeah, so we do have sponsors, and I'm just going to flash them up on the screen now. There we go. I think hold on, let me just.
Yeah, Callington Mill is not
there
a sponsor.
There you go. Yep, Callington Mill is not sponsoring. They are the guest today. I think the From all the ones that we've spoken to recently, they have all said, "Don't call us, we'll call you."
Yeah, they're so busy.
So, which is fantastic that they're that busy. But we've got the barrel brokers. Have a chat with Robbie. He's got all the good stuff. Burns Welding and Fabrication, obviously fantastic steel builders and masters of the industry. They are fully booked as far as I'm aware.
2023, 2024.
Yep, 2024 if you are lucky. Wino Cooperage, Andrew Young, who's been on, mentioned a few comments. Incidentally, Young is going to be framing barrels at Epic in the Valley, our Capity camping weekend, which is next weekend.
Yes, next weekend.
Next weekend we have
I haven't even got
Epic
labels.
in the Valley. Shit, you better do that, mate.
I know.
So Youngie's going to be flaming a barrel. He's coming all the way from South Australia. He's coming up to flame some barrels with us and talk all things. We've got Transwood. One of our most recent episodes was with the fellas from Transwood, and just fantastic.
Laurie and Dave, awesome time.
Oh, deep dive into wood. It's
Deep dive into wood.
I reckon I'm really looking forward to us having a wood off.
A wood off. We're going to have a wood off.
Wood off.
We talked about it. We are wood off.
Sounds dangerous.
We are going to have
We'll
a
have
wood
a
off.
wood off between Callington Mill, Transwood.
Oh yeah,
and
Callington
Youngie.
Mill can be part of it. Yes, yes.
Yeah, fuck yeah. We will get all the masters of wood and they can just wood the hell out of each other.
Off. It is wood off. It's going to be a wood off.
Wood off. It's going to be a major event. It's going to be like an MMA. It's going to be epic. Absolutely epic. Saberglass. Get all your glass from Saberglass. CCL labels. And of course, if you need water, Wild Woken have, well, I mean, look.
That's my local water.
The local water, the New South Wales. There is something about the Tassie water, yes. I mean, you knock a girl off the pier and she comes out.
I challenge it.
But Wild Woken, New South Wales, natural spring water, can't get any better, really.
Right. Wrap it up, Luke. Bring it home.
Wrapping it up. All right. Now, hold on. Let me just remove that. Then we will go down to, I've got a few things prepared. Obviously, our main guest of the evening, CallingtonMillDistillery.com. Go in there.
Hey, John.
And John, thank you very much. It's been an absolute pleasure chatting with you and getting to know you. I'm going to be down in Tassie in March. I'm going to come and see you.
Please.
So I'm going to hit you up very soon for that. Then we've got go back to episode 5 of Shooting the Shit, and we've got Derwent Distillery.
Robbie, we
Robbie.
chatted shit with Robbie, episode 5, mate. All that time ago.
They've got whiskey. They also have an absolutely fucking cracking gin. I'm a huge fan of this, and I'm going to be getting another bottle for free.
Thank you. Excuse me.
We've also got our special guests as well, ballerinedistillery.com.au. When I am next down in Victoria, visiting the folks in Colac, I will be heading your way as well. And of course, Bill Lark. I mean, which brand do I put you under? We've got Old Kempton. We've got Lark, of course, your namesake. Which other ones should I display on the screen?
No, that's enough. I'm just here to support all my mates that are here with us tonight. That's the only reason I'm here tonight.
I've got a comment. So I was at the Australian Whisky Awards. I picked up bronze Whisky Personality of the Year, and I lost out to this guy. And this guy I lost out to was Bill Lark, who got the silver.
There's always next year, Crafty. Next year.
Oh,
Next
mate,
year.
no, I think I've done
Really?
my dash. I don't think I'm going to get any better than where I am now.
Silver to Bill Lark, though, is pretty fucking good.
Oh, yeah. I agree. I'm happy.
Very good.
And I got silver distiller of the year, and who got gold? Who got
You
gold?
know behind.
Who got gold? Christy Lark.
Yeah. A very proud parent.
Probably
Very
genetic.
proud parent. Yeah.
And hang on, and Lisa from Archie Rose got bronze. So a round of applause.
Yeah. Go
for
the
them as
women.
well. It
Go
was
the
an
women.
Australian night. It was a fun night. I had a lot of fun.
It was.
Tell you what, I hugged and kissed so many people. I'm surprised I don't have COVID.
You're
Somehow
probably
I
why I've got COVID.
All
All
right,
right,
Luke,
thank you all very much.
Get
I'm
home.
going to hit the end broadcast. Don't go anywhere, guys. Thank
No,
you all
don't
for
go
watching.
anywhere, guys.
Please like, subscribe, follow, share, do all the things, because obviously we want to get the word out to as many people as possible. It really helps us out. Thank you very much. And actually, before we go, who have we got on next, Crafty? You're master of the calendar.
Oh, Jesus. Hang on a sec.
Throw
Hold on.
Crafty under the bus.
No, throw Crafty on the bus. Hang on. And it is the...
Still Magic, Marcel.
It is. You're right. It's Marcel.
Yep, Marcel
Magic.
on the...
Marcel Thompson. All
Yep,
about...
Got a new book out.
Got a new book. It's an awesome book.
Yes.
And if you're a new guy, new distiller, and you want some help, absolutely get on to Marcel's books. Or
Top
books.
books.
So
Top
that
book.
will be on... Oh, have you done a forward for it, Bill?
Uh,
Have you put your name?
I've read the
Yeah.
board. It's not bad.
I read both of them. They're great books. Great books.
They are
Awesome. So
brilliant.
that is on the 17th of March. So 2 weeks from now. And I'll actually be in Tassie for that one. So hopefully my internet will work. Who
Come
knows?
on.
Yeah, you're sort of implying that Tasmanians haven't quite got there with the internet yet. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not implying anything, really. Just, whatever.
Wrap it up, Luke.
All right. Thank you all. Like and subscribe. Catch us all later.
See you later.
See you later. Bye bye.